Have you ever witnessed something that should have gotten someone fired at work? If so, what happened? Story 1. Coworker jokingly threw a box at my chest, knocked the wind out of me, and I collapsed. He begged me not to tell anyone, and I didn't. The guy was a weirdo. He'd talk about how he'd burn insects and starts fires. Weird shit. He ended up getting in more trouble later on for some reason or another. Crass jokes, sexual comments. Either way, he eventually transferred stores, and I never saw him again. This all happened back in 2013 to 14. Fast forward to earlier this year, 2023, my store was getting a major remodel, and he was one of the managers that came from afar with a team of workers to do the remodel. I was surprised he was still with the company, let alone in a leadership position. I said hi to him a time or two, but he was busy with the remodeling project on the other side of the store, so I eventually stopped seeing him. This whole time, things were tense between the remodel crew and our store crew. Pallet jacks getting stolen, supplies going missing, etc. Both sides hated each other. I hadn't seen, we'll call him John, in a few weeks, and noticed there was a new manager on the remodeling crew. Either way, things were finally cooling down between us. Out of curiosity, I asked one of the remodel crew what had happened to John, and they told me, "Oh, you didn't hear? He got demoted for trying to start problems between our teams. He'd tell us to steal your pallet jacks and tried getting a few people to fight." Unreal. Story 2. I worked in a milk factory. I was working with a man that was a bit off. We had to take the milk cartons on a conveyor belt and place them on a pallet. While we were working, he said, "Time for a break," and slammed a blade used to open boxes into the conveyor belt. The conveyor belt got absolutely destroyed, and the machine was in maintenance for 2 days after that. Story 3. When I was in high school, I worked at Dairy Queen. I was on the opening crew one Saturday, and the assistant manager unlocks the doors, lets us in, and tells us, "Guys, I'm really hungover right now, so I'm going to sleep in the back. Wake me up if you need me." She goes back and curls up on top of the laundry machines. We washed all the uniforms on site because they get covered in ice cream. It was a slow day, and she was the cool manager, so we all let her sleep and never told the owner. Another night, one of our cook's buddies parked their car in our lot, and he just hung out there with them smoking weed for a couple hours. If someone ordered food, we'd go out and get him. He'd come back inside, cook it, and go right back out. The rest of us had the decency to smoke after work, but nobody ratted him out either. Story 4. Was working at McDonald's. Watched a female crew member sneeze into her hands and proceed to make a rap and sent it out. I threw it in the bin before the front staff got it. Edit, I should mention. I was genuinely shocked to see it happen. McDonald's is extremely strict on hygiene. I reported her to a manager, but she denied it and said she sneezed into her arm. We were too busy for anyone to check the cameras. Story 5. Work in a residential setting for teens with behavioral issues. There's one staff in particular who should not be working with kids, and it was clear on my second day. He's almost 50 and behaves like a 15-year-old. He's always going back and forth and gets mad about everything with them. One day things got heated between him and a kid for the 100th time, and he ends up choking the kid. The kid was actually being more mature about it, and he wanted to continue to fight the kid. We separated them, and I was holding the staff back when he started to get mad at me for not letting him beat up a 14-year-old. I've only been at this job for 3 months, and was told by other staff that this has happened multiple times now with different kids. He still has a job because he's best friends with the 2 bosses. Story 6. I was managing a restaurant/club. Late-night food orders were getting backed up, and 2 of the cooks were missing. Nobody knows where they are, but we know they didn't leave. Their coats and backpacks are still here. I walk around outside, and between a dumpster and the building, one of them is blowing the other. One guy was married, and the other was a college student working part-time. I didn't fire them, just told them to finish up and wash their hands ASAP. Story 7. A nurse I worked with left narcotics, meant for a terminal patient's pain management, in a room with a patient in for recovery from a narcotic addiction. The recovery patient was the one that walked out into the hall and handed it to me, saying, "These were meant for someone else." She left a month's supply in that man's room. I brought it to the desk. The manager should have fired her on the spot. Dip nurse just laughed and said, "Blonde moment." Manager laughed alongside her. I spent most of my shift just staying with the guy whose life had been ruined by the very thing he just had to handle. I quit a week later. Story 8. A few weeks ago, one of my sales reps comes in to drop off paperwork for a sale he had just completed. The whole time he's bragging about how the customer couldn't believe his great deal, even though he was paying MSRP. I take the paperwork and start looking through it to verify the same amount to put the commission in for payroll. I come up on the price, and in the box it says $2,100. I look at him in complete disbelief. I show him where he put the price, and his face went white as a ghost. $2,100 when it should have been $21,000. By misplacing the comma and not adding an extra zero, the dumb SOB let a brand new UTV go for $18.9 thousand below MSRP. I had to tell the owner who told the sales rep that 1% of the price would come out of all future paychecks until the price was paid back. Story 9. I worked at a special needs day program many years ago. Wednesdays were classic film days at the local theater, and we'd take the clients. I was a one-to-one, meaning I had only one client. My direct superior had 3, and a substitute had 4. The substitute lost one of her guys and didn't realize it until after the film when we were counting clients. Long story short, I got fired and the superior got fired. But the one whose responsibility it was to watch him kept her job. The client was fine, though. He was found a mile down the road asking for a police officer to help him find his way home. Story 10. Co-worker is playing music on a Bluetooth speaker at our small store for all the employees and customers to enjoy. He tells the boss he has to use the bathroom, so off he goes. The music stops. Then we all hear a woman moaning and more moaning. Then the moaning volume got louder and louder and louder. Within 5 seconds, it was at full blast. Then it suddenly stopped. He comes out of the bathroom a minute later down the hallway, and everyone is looking at him. His face was like a kid who was just caught jerking off by his parents. Manager brings him into the office. Then 30 minutes later, they are back on the retail floor working like nothing happened. I later asked my manager what happened, and he told me it is pretty obvious. But then he told me that when he was playing the corn on his phone and didn't hear anything, that the idiot turned up the volume until it was loud enough that when he heard it playing from the speaker out on the floor, he had realized he had done messed up. Manager said the embarrassment was punishment enough, and didn't even write him up for it.